Hey guys, Ryan Howitzer here, and I just saw Ant-Man over the weekend. And guess what? It was amazing. Okay, I had my doubts about Ant-Man. I was a little bit worried, but you know, in Marvel we trust, right? I mean, they haven't let us down yet. So, Ant-Man was really good. It was really funny. It was really awesome, and it kind of put a nice bow on top of Phase 2, which we just wrapped up. Now, Phase 2 kind of got off to a controversial start with Iron Man 3. Some people loved it, some people hated it. Very few were in the middle. It's very divided. I love Iron Man 3. I think Iron Man 3 is very good. But as we went through with Phase 2, we had Thor the Dark World, which was pretty good. It had its problems. Then we got to Captain America the Winter Soldier, which added some darkness to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I'm going to be talking more about some of the darkness in contrast with some of the lightheartedness in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in this video. But then we got Guardians of the Galaxy, which added more of that humor back in. Then we got Avengers Age of Ultron, which was a nice mix of both dark and light. Age of Ultron was kind of a dark movie, if you really think about it. It's pretty dark. But it had the Joss Whedon humor to it. So it was a nice balance. And now we have Ant-Man. And Ant-Man is, pretty clearly a lighthearted movie. It's very funny. And it's got a lot of cool action in it too, but it's very easily falls into the category of an action comedy. And really, I felt like it did both very well. Especially the comedy, though. Paul Rudd, of course, Paul Rudd's hilarious, okay? Anchorman is hilarious. Paul Rudd will usually deliver a very funny performance. I'd say 9 times out of 10. Michael Douglas actually surprised me with how many zingers his Hank Pym got off. And that was very cool. Evangeline Lilly had a few good ones here or there. But Michael Pena as Luis in this movie, he was kind of a scene stealer, if you think about it. Everything he said was funny. And yeah, I know Chris Stuckman already said that. And I watched his review before I went to see the movie. And he was right. Michael Pena was very hilarious in this movie. And I really felt like T.I. was really funny too, even though he had kind of a smaller role. He was pretty funny. And the third guy, I don't remember the actor's name, but the Eastern European guy, he was pretty funny as well. And the action was great. You know, every time he shrunk down and hit somebody and turned big, the movement from small to large, the camera work was very good. Everything just looked really cool. There's one fight scene, I'm not going to spoil it for you guys who haven't seen the movie. Ant-Man fights an unexpected cameo. And that's all I'm going to say. And that scene is very cool. I really love that scene. Now, something that's interesting about Ant-Man. It's very comparable to Guardians of the Galaxy, for me. That came out around this time last summer. Guardians of the Galaxy took a bunch of superheroes nobody really knew a whole lot about, and gave them their own movie. And so a lot of people, a lot of comic book fans, me especially, went into the movie not knowing at all what to expect. I don't know a thing about Guardians of the Galaxy. If you look around my room, I'm mostly a DC guy. So I don't know a whole lot about kind of the back roster of Marvel's heroes. But I thoroughly enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy. Ant-Man was kind of the same thing. Now, Hank Pym is not as much of a B-lister as the cast of Guardians of the Galaxy. Hank Pym's... Ant-Man. Hank Pym's Ant-Man. Ant-Man is kind of... He's more of an A-minus lister. He used to be a lot more of an A-lister. Now he's more relegated to the back. Which kind of happened around the time Scott Lang became Ant-Man. Scott Lang is Ant-Man in the movie. But Hank Pym is a founding member of the Avengers, and he's actually the guy in the comics who creates Ultron. Now, they took both of those away from Hank Pym in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Part of the reason for that is they're going a little bit more for the Ultimate Universe, which, for those of you who don't know Marvel Comics, for the longest time, it's ending now, but there were two Marvel universes in the comics. There's Earth 616, which is the mainline Marvel Universe. Don't even worry about 616. That's just a number. Mainline comic book universe, Amazing Spider-Man, all that stuff, that was all 616. And then there was the Ultimate Universe, which was created in the early 2000s to give writers, room to give fresh takes on superheroes. The most famous, Ultimate Spider-Man by Brian Michael Bendis, and he was writing it up until just recently when Secret Wars started, and the whole point of the new Secret Wars event is to get rid of the Ultimate Universe. Anyway, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is taking a lot of its cues from the Ultimate Universe. However, a lot of comic book fans, myself and my friend Ed included, we felt like, Hank Pym was kind of getting the shaft in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They were taking away most of his accomplishments. However, I feel like this movie rights a lot of wrongs when it comes to Hank Pym. Michael Douglas gives us a really great performance as Hank Pym. And we see that he's actually a big part of, the backstory of the cinematic universe. I mean, he was contemporaries with Howard Stark and Peggy Carter. He was there in the early days of S.H.I.E.L.D. In fact, the very opening scene, it's set in 1989 in the Triskelion, the S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters that we see kind of destroyed in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Captain America, the Winter Soldier. We're seeing the Triskelion be completed, and we're seeing, kind of the birth of the modern S.H.I.E.L.D. Hank Pym was involved way back, going all the way back. It looked like all the way back to the 60s, Hank Pym was involved. And we get a good introduction to Ant-Man for a lot of people who don't know a whole lot about Ant-Man. I did some research. They did a decent job of introducing Scott Lang into the cinematic universe. Now, obviously, they didn't perfectly translate the character of Scott Lang or how he became Ant-Man, but they got close, and it worked very well for the cinematic universe we have established. Now, like I said, I enjoyed the movie Ant-Man. I also really enjoyed my experience seeing Ant-Man because I went and saw it with Kathy. Hi, Kathy. I know you're watching this. And, Kathy and I obviously had a great time. But separating the movie from my experience watching the movie was still very good. Very good on its own. Now, one thing I'd like to address, you probably noticed the title of this video isn't just Ant-Man Review, it's Ant-Man Review and the balance between light and dark superhero movies. Ant-Man's a very lighthearted movie. Now, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has a reputation for being very lighthearted. And it's looking like DC's Cinematic Universe is going to have more of a dark reputation, especially with this new Batman vs. Superman trailer and the new Suicide Squad trailer. We're looking at kind of a very dark universe, whereas Marvel has kind of set up a very light universe. Now, I spend a lot of time on the internet, as you probably guess, from a man who's making superhero movie reviews, sitting here with his Batman poster behind him and a Superman t-shirt. Yeah, I spend a lot of time on the internet. This war between light superhero movies should be the only superhero movies and dark superhero movies should be the only superhero movies goes all the way back probably to Adam West's Batman. This is a very old battle. Okay, 1966. Adam West Batman shows up in the movies. People are Batmania. Adam West, when he was interviewed for a documentary, said there were the 3 Bs of the late 60s. Beatles, Bond, and Batman. Okay, they were all going crazy over lighthearted Batman. The Silver Age was going on. But by 1969, everyone was done with that show. Okay, the camp factor was done in the comics as well as on the show, and Batman was kind of reinvented by Denny O'Neil and a lot of other writers and artists, Neil Adams. They all kind of brought Batman back to his darker roots. But I'm sure if there were an internet back then, there would be all kinds of people going on there. Man, I love the new Batman series. It's so groovy, stuff like that. But then you'd have the crotchety old people like, back in my day, Batman was dark and he worked alone and he beat the crap out of people. I mean, there's always going to be that argument. Some people are going to like the more light interpretations of superheroes. Some are going to like the more dark interpretations. Where do I stand? I like them both, okay? Yeah, I know you're probably thinking, that's a very politician answer there, Howitzer. By the way, if you call me Howitzer in your head, cool. But anyway, some people are hardline light interpreting. Superheroes are for kids. Some people are like, no, superheroes are for adults and adults only. I'm somewhere in the middle. Superheroes can be enjoyed by all ages. But some characters lend themselves better to dark interpretations. Some characters lend themselves better to light interpretations. Like on the DC side, Batman should be dark. Okay? Superman can get away with being anywhere between light or dark. There are some pretty dark Superman stories out there, and not just Man of Steel. I mean, if you don't know this, Superman actually kills General Zod in the comics. That's not something that they just made up for the movie. Superman kills General Zod in the comics. The death of Superman is a very dark story, so he can be on either end of the spectrum, and some heroes are like that. Spider-Man's very much like that on the Marvel side. But again, on the Marvel side, Daredevil. Daredevil belongs over in the dark. There's not a whole lot I can add to that. The best Daredevil stories are the darkest Daredevil stories. Even, the most recent run, Mark Waid, his Daredevil, while it kind of plays out more lighthearted, it's pretty dark. Go read some of it. I mean, Matt's life is not easy. But it doesn't have to be black or white, okay? Some movies should be dark. Some movies should be lighthearted. And it's not even the DC universe should be dark, Marvel universe should be light. No, it should be mixed. It should be mixed in each universe. On the DC side, like I said, Batman should be dark. Superman can be either light or dark. The Flash should be lighthearted. Aquaman should probably be a little bit more on the darker side. It should be like Game of Thrones underwater. Honestly, that's what I think. Because Aquaman's very cool when you let him be cool. Green Lantern, he should probably be somewhere in the middle. Wonder Woman, again, probably closer to dark, more mythological. Now on the Marvel side, we've had the Avengers was very, very funny, and kind of lighthearted, despite the fact that there's an alien invasion that ended up killing a lot of people. But then you have Avengers Age of Ultron, which is pretty dark. But the real game changers this year were Ant-Man, very lighthearted, and Daredevil, very, very dark. Daredevil is the one Marvel property that I would say do not show to your kids. Now, I am 19 years old. I am by no means an authority on what you should or should not show to your kids. But I would lean towards don't show your kids the Daredevil series, because it's kind of gruesome. It gets kind of bloody. But the thing is, Daredevil's very dark, Ant-Man's very light, but they exist in the same universe. Not only that, but they feel like they should exist in the same universe. The references to the Marvel Universe at large in Daredevil didn't feel forced to me. They felt... they were subtle. They felt like they needed to be there. But just keep in mind, Daredevil and Ant-Man exist in the same universe. They exist in the same cinematic universe, despite their radically different tones. I feel like every cinematic universe should strive for that. DC, there's some comment that I think was way blown out of proportions and probably taken way out of context. Some Warner Brothers executive apparently said something along the lines of no jokes in the DC cinematic universe. I think that was way taken out of context, blown out of proportions. I don't know what the proper context was for it, but that just seems stupid to me. Because they're going to make a Shazam movie. And not only that, they're going to make a more lighthearted Shazam movie. Because that's what Shazam should be. I think if the DC Universe is going to go anywhere, they not only have to do good on those dark movies, they have to do some lighthearted movies too. The Flash should be very lighthearted. Green Lantern, the Green Lantern Corps movie that's going to be coming out, it can be anywhere between dark or light. It should probably strive for somewhere directly in the middle. Although if Guardians of the Galaxy told us anything, you can have a good space opera and it still be kind of lighthearted. I feel like the Green Lantern movie should probably go for a similar tone to Guardians of the Galaxy. So a little more towards the light side. But here's the problem with the internet, because I brought that up earlier. People are always going to be complaining too light or too dark. You can never satisfy everyone. So studios shouldn't try to. They should, give a unified vision for what the cinematic universe should be like. But they should let these directors, these creative people, have a little bit of elbow room. Like, you shouldn't force the director of the Flash movie, and I don't think they've announced anybody for it. You shouldn't force whoever that person may be to make a dark movie. It's a Flash movie, but you also shouldn't force them to make a light movie. Kind of let them kind of set the pace for their movie, just as long as they keep in line with the vision of the universe. And I feel like Marvel does a good job of that. Now, we've had people like Edgar Wright say, I didn't feel like I had enough creativity on Ant-Man, so he left and, Peyton Reed finished the movie out for him. But I feel like Marvel does let people kind of create. I mean, look at what they let Stephen DeKnight and Drew Goddard get away with on Daredevil. If they'd really cracked down and said, no, we want you to make something like Joss Whedon made with the Avengers on Daredevil, Daredevil would have bombed and bombed hard. Now, they had to let the Daredevil creative team have a little bit of leeway. Same way they let Joss Whedon have a little bit of leeway on his movie. We shouldn't be dividing ourselves. As fans of superhero movies, we shouldn't be dividing ourselves along lines of, I like light superhero movies and only light superhero movies, and I only like dark superhero movies. Because, honestly, there's room for both Shazam and Sin City, okay? There's room for Ant-Man and Daredevil. There's room for another Punisher movie and, I don't know, a Squirrel Girl movie if they wanted to go there. There's enough people that you can get a good showing out of just about any property now, because we've built up names that we can trust. The Marvel brand is incredibly trustworthy. I mean, imagine if Marvel hadn't built up their brand yet and the first thing they gave us was Guardians of the Galaxy. Would you have gone to see it? Probably not. I don't think I would have gone to see it. Same thing with DC. They gave us a Superman movie first, and now they're giving us a Batman versus Superman movie. They're building their identity to the point where they can get away with a Suicide Squad movie, or down the line a Martian Manhunter movie. How cool would that be? So the studios have to give us names that we can trust, and then they can start experimenting within their universe. And I feel like Marvel has done a great job with that, and Ant-Man is another fine example of Marvel experimenting. I can only hope that DC, once they get Batman vs. Superman and Suicide Squad out, if those are successful, I hope that they kind of play around with some of the light and dark elements, especially in Justice League. Now, I know Zack Snyder's directing Justice League. Zack Snyder likes his movies dark. We might not get as lighthearted as maybe some of you want. Like, we probably won't get something like Bruce Timm gave us with his Justice League series. But you know what, down the line when Flash gets his own movie, yeah, let's see a lighthearted Flash movie. If Joseph Gordon-Levitt ever gets that Sandman movie off the ground, gotta go really dark with Sandman. Ben Affleck's Batman movie, probably gonna be very dark. But if Man of Steel gets a sequel, I hope it's a little bit more towards the light side. All in all, just to wrap up, these movies shouldn't be afraid to be either too light or too dark, and we shouldn't make them afraid to be either too light or too dark. We have to let creators create. We have to let them, be a little bit creative with the source material. As much as I tend to harp on, you didn't stay close enough to the source material, sometimes you can't stick too close to the source material. Okay? And I fully accept that. That's something I've had to come to grips with as a fan of superhero movies. You can't always just take a comic book and put it up on screen and expect people to enjoy it, because some things just don't translate well. Now, when it's stupid, meaningless changes, like we saw some in Daredevil, and we'll see in future movies, yeah, that's different. When it seems like this is just this one character, here's a good example. Lieutenant Eckhart in Batman 89. Lieutenant Eckhart dressed like Harvey Bullock and acted like Harvey Bullock. Especially that Harvey Bullock wasn't always on Jim Gordon's side. When he started out, he was kind of a patsy for the mayor, trying to take Jim Gordon down. But he changed. If they had just called Lieutenant Eckhart Harvey Bullock, that would have taken away my entire problem with the character of Lieutenant Eckhart. But the fact that they felt like we're just going to copy this character from the comics, but change his name, that bothered me. Same thing with Carl Grissom. Why not go with Rupert Thorne? Or any of the other crime bosses from the Batman universe? Why do you have to kind of create a generic mob boss that could be any of them and just give him a different name? That doesn't make any sense to me. That kind of stuff I've got a serious problem with, but stuff that has to change just so it can fit into a movie or it can fit into an existing cinematic universe, that's fine. I'm okay with that. So guys, like I said, I like both light and dark superhero movies. I think each cinematic universe should have a mixture of the two. Ant-Man, just to bring it all back home, Ant-Man, very good. I highly recommend you see it. One problem that I forgot to address with Ant-Man, the villain. Marvel has struggled with villains mightily. Kingpin from Daredevil, he was very good. I felt like Ronan the Accuser in Guardians of the Galaxy was very well developed. And the most developed villain in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is obviously Loki. But here's the thing. Loki has had 3 movies. 2 of them where he starred in them. He was the main antagonist of those movies. The other one, he got a little too much screen time. And he's going to be in a 4th movie. Okay, we have had lots of Loki development. What about the other villains? Go back to Thor the Dark World. The big problem with that movie? Malekith. What's his motivation? Why is he evil? Where's Malekith's development? I think it was given entirely to Darcy and Loki, the comic relief. But Darren Cross, Yellow Jacket in this movie, he suffered a lot from just kind of being ignored. And I feel like that's to the film's detriment. We don't really... they tell us why he's evil, but we don't really see it. That's the one problem I have. That's the big problem I have with Ant-Man. Other than that, Ant-Man is great. I'm going to give Ant-Man actually an 8 out of 10. I really feel like it deserves an 8 out of 10. It's a very good movie. So go see Ant-Man, okay? Go see Ant-Man and stop getting on forums online and going, I like dark superhero movies. No more lighthearted superhero nonsense. Or, I hate all these dark superhero movies. They're so depressing. Blah, blah, blah. Guys, there's room for both. If you like darker superhero movies, there's movies out there for you. If you like light superhero movies, there's movies out there for you. But don't keep pushing the extreme, grim, dark, everything is depressing agenda, or the, oh, light, happy, we're just going to make jokes and ignore all the actual problems that our characters face. Okay. Think about movies like Kingsman. Kingsman did a very good job of balancing light and dark, and it was based on a comic book. That's, I think, what we should strive for in our superhero movies. So, studio executives, if any of you are watching this, be like Kingsman. Okay? So again, Ant-Man, 8 out of 10. Stop complaining about light and dark superhero movies. There's room for both. Anyway, I'm Ryan Howitzer, and I'll see you next time. Superman review is going to be done by the end of this week. And at this time, I'd like to announce, I am actually, after my top 10 directors video, I'm going to retire the name Hypertime. I'm not going to use Hypertime anymore. The show is still going to exist, but I'm going to call it Meanwhile in a Parallel Universe. I feel like that's a better name for it than Hypertime, because I have to explain the name Hypertime to a lot of people. And it's a very obscure concept from DC way back in the day. So I'm gonna ditch it, and I'm gonna rename it Meanwhile in a Parallel Universe. And the first video I'm gonna do for that is gonna be after my top 10 directors video. But the next video you can expect is Superman. Oh, and also, one quick correction. At the end of my Superman video, I say the next movie I'm going to review is Sin City. I'm not going to review Sin City next. I'm going to review Fantastic Four next. Because if you haven't noticed, it takes me a while to get these videos out, and I apologize for that. So anyway, after Superman, the next Howitzer's Line of Fire I'm going to do is going to be on Fantastic Four. And also, expect a video like this on the new Fantastic Four movie.